Okay, guys, we just finished up session 3 today in class. So I know hopefully you're going to be started on the homework within the next day or so. So session 1 asks us to use base 10 blocks and represent the value, okay, or the number 43 using base blocks in 3 different ways. Okay, so how many choices could we do that? All right, well, I like to start sometimes from like the most number of blocks and then work down to the smallest, or you could do reverse. So I could have 43 small. That would obviously be the most blocks. I also could have the least blocks, okay, which would be 4 long and 3 small. That would work, okay. How many other choices are there? Any combination of using longs and small that would add up to 43. For example, you could have 2 longs and 23 smalls. Okay, you could have 1 long and 1 long and 33 smalls. Okay, any combination that would sum to 43, those would all be different ways of using base 10 blocks to show a value of 43. Okay, so what about these next questions? We're basically starting out with 3,500 or 3.5 thousand. And we want to see what that's equivalent to in hundreds, tens, and ones. Now, what I want you to notice is that we're stepping down here in the correct place value. If we're thinking about thousands, we have thousands, then we have hundreds, then we have tens, and then we have ones place, right? If we're thinking about place value. Notice, remember the pattern we always come up with. Ones, tens, hundreds, one of something new. In this case, that something new is 1,000. So this would be 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and then one of something new. In this case, after we have thousands, of course, we'd have millions. Then we do the same thing with millions, and then billions, and then trillions, and so forth. Okay, so we're starting with thousands, and first thing we want to do is step that down to hundreds. So I'm at thousands going to 100. That's one trade down. So that means for every 1,000, I'm going to get 10 hundreds. Okay, so these 3,000 should give me 30 hundreds. Okay, I'm going to get 10 for each one of them. Trade 1, I get 10. Trade 1, I get 10. Trade 1, I get 10. Okay, so I have traded 3,000s for 30 hundreds, 10 per 1,000. Okay. Now after that, I'm left with this little half of 1,000. Okay. So instead of getting a full 10, okay, if you read this as a fraction properly, 5 out of the 10 that we need, okay, I would get 5. We would know that's equal to half of 1,000. So if a whole 1,000 gives us 10, so this would be 5 hundredths, okay, for a total of 3,500 hundredths, or flats in this case, okay? I'm sorry, yes, flats. So notice that would be the same thing as moving the decimal right one place. We're getting 10 times as many, okay? Now this was one step down. So we had a decimal movement of one place. We were going down, so this value had to get bigger. Now here, we're going down even further. We're going to tens. So obviously this count's going to get larger. We're going to trade down. We would have had 3,500 hundreds, and now we're going to have to trade all of these hundreds for tens. We know every 100 is going to give us 10 tens. So we should get 10 times the amount of tens as we did as hundreds. Okay, so we could say trade down for 3,500 hundreds, then trade down for 10 tens per 100, or 350 tens total. Okay, so I traded here down to hundreds, and if I want to go to tens, each one of these hundreds is going to give me 10 tens. So the equivalent of what I've done here is move the decimal twice. Okay, we went from thousands to hundreds. Now we're going from thousands to tens, so 2 decimal places. Okay, should be 350 tens total. All right, now we're going to ones. Okay, we have already previously traded. So trade down to hundreds. That's what we did in the beginning. We had 35 of those. Then we traded down to tens, which gave us 350. Now we trade each 10 for one small, or ones as the case may be, and have 3,500 when we are finished. Okay, 1 10. Okay, we trade each 10, for 10 smalls. Okay. So I start up here at thousands. I've got 3.5. I trade once. I now have 35. I trade again. I have 350. I'm adding a 0 every time because I'm making this 10 times bigger because I'm trading down. If I were trading up, I would be pretty much dividing by 10 every time and getting 1/10 of what I had before. Okay, so 3,500. Right, using base 10 blocks to trade, always anchoring to 10, explain the trades made. Okay, so 571 is equivalent to how many tens? So we would trade if we have 571, we're going to trade our smalls for longs. Okay, so we're going to trade 10 smalls for 1 long. Okay, and we're going to do that 57 times. Okay, now why 57? Okay, because I know I have 570. Okay, I know eventually this is a number that's divisible by 10, so I'll be able to make whole groups of 10. Okay, if I take out 10 at a time, I'll be able to do that 57 times. Okay, now that would give me 57 longs, which is 57 tens. Okay, let's go over here to our ones. We're going up to hundreds. Okay, so think about what we just did. Okay, you can use this previous step to help you. Okay, we've already traded smalls for longs. 10 small equal 110 or 1 long. We've done that 57 times. Okay, now we have them in tens. That's where we left off here. So how are we going to get those for hundreds? Then we trade 10 of the longs for a flat, which in our case represents 100. And we're going to do that 5 times. There will be 7 longs left over. Okay, now how would we show that as a decimal? Obviously, I'm moving up 2 decimal places. I'm trading up to tens and then I'm trading up to ones. So essentially, I should be moving my decimal 2 places, 2 trades, 1 trade up, 2 trades up. So now this should be 5.7 if I'm just using the shortcut. But why is that true? Think about this. I have 5 flats or 500s I could do completely. I could not trade these 7 because I need 10. So why is it 5.7? That's 5 and 7 out of the 10 we would need to trade up one last time. Okay, so let's go look at number 4. Imagine you place 60 smalls in the middle of the table and want to play the trading game in base 5. always anchoring to 5. How many of each block are there? And explain your trades. Okay, so let's start out. The first thing I would do is trade smalls 5 at a time for longs. Okay, so what does that mean? 5 small equals 1 long, and I would do this 12 times. Okay, why 12? Because if I pulled out 5 at a time and I started with 60, it would take me 12 times to trade them all to longs. Okay, now then what I would do, then I would trade 5 smalls, or I would trade, longs 5 at a time for flats, or 25ths, in this case 25s. All right, we know that 5 longs equals 1 flat, and I'm going to have to do that twice. Okay, why? Excuse me. Why? Because if I have 12 of them and I'm removing them 5 at a time, I will be able to remove 2 sets of 5, and then I'll have 2 left over. Okay, so at this time, I now have 2 flats where I made the trade, 2 longs because they're left over from the 10 I used, and 0 smalls. Okay, so this is all the trading I can do. If I'm in base 5, I can go up to 5. So I know that 220 in base 5 is going to be worth 61s, or the value 60 in base 10. Okay. If you have 2 large blocks, 3 flats, 1 long, and 4 small, how many smalls could you receive by trading all of these blocks to ones using base 5? So here we're going backwards. Here you had a specific value you were trying to create, and you wanted to write that number in base 5 appropriately. Now we're going backwards. We have a value we've created in base 5, 2 large, okay? 3 flats, 1 long, 4 small. That's what we're looking at. We want to know what its worth is in base 10. Notice we always convert these to smalls because what do you know across the board? Smalls are worth 1 and no matter the base. Okay, so I always start with my largest block. So I'm going to trade, not sure why this is typing in blue, but that's okay. I'm going to trade 2, so this would be larges, for 20 flats, or I'm sorry, not 20. We're in base 5. So I'm going to trade 2 larges for 10 flats. Remember that we're anchoring to 5. Okay. So if I wanted to explain that trade, 1 large equals 5 flats. Okay. Now I have a total of 13 flats, 1 long, and 4 small. Okay, why 13? Here's the 10 I got from the 2 larges. 1 large gave me 5. The second large gave me another 5 for 10, plus the 3 we already had. Okay, then I would trade 13 flats for, okay, I'm going to get 5 from each one of these. So 5 times 3 is 15. So this would be 65, okay, for 65 longs, right? Every 1 flat is equal to 5 longs because we are in base 5. Okay? So now I have 65 longs from these 13 flats plus another long, which is 66 longs, and 4 small. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to trade 66 longs for how many small? Okay. Now, every one long is going to give me 5 small. Okay. So if I do this, I have 5 times 6, which is 30. Carry the 3. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 3 more is 330. So I have 330 small. Okay. 1 long equals 5 small. Now I have 334 small. This value is 334 in base 10. Okay, once we get them in ones, they're all equivalent. Okay. Now, why should it take more digits? This is a lower base. Anytime we're working with a lower base, it's going to take us a little while here. Okay. So, in order to trade, I started with the largest and I trade down to the smallest in order to get equivalent value. Okay. So we've got a little column over here where it gives us some numbers and we are given that in base 10 and we want to express what that would be like, what the equivalent numeral would be in base 5, base 2, and base 16. So let's start with base 5. Okay. So I have 7, think of it as smalls, 7 smalls. Okay, so what would I do? I would trade 5 small for 1 long, and I have 2 left over. Okay, so as a digit, this is going to look like 1 long, 2 smalls in base 5. Okay. Let's keep doing all of the base 5s, and then we'll come back to the base 2s. 82. Okay, so think about it as 82 smalls. I'm going to trade. Okay, I'm going to take out 5 at a time to trade from longs. Okay, so if I do that, I end up with 16 longs. Okay, and that's going to use 80 smalls. So I would trade 80 smalls for 16 longs. Okay, now how do I do that? 1 long for every 5 small. Okay, so that'll give me 16. Now I have 16 longs, plus I still have those 2 leftover smalls because that only used up 80. Okay, I now have 16 long and 2 small. Okay, then if I want to keep going, no, I can't stop here because it's bigger than 5. Then I'm going to trade 15 longs, okay, for 3 flats. Right? Again, 5 longs equals 1 flat. Okay, so that means I now have 3 flats. I have 1 long left over and 2 small. Okay, here after I did the first trade, I had 16 longs and 2 smalls. Can't trade those, there's not enough. Then I traded 15, so 3 sets of 5 should be, I'm sorry, for 3 flats, not 2. Okay. And now with all my trades, I have 3 flats, 1 long, and 1 small. I can't trade anymore because none of these have groups of 5. So the numeral I'm looking for here is 312 in base 5. Right? If we want to check that, we would think 2 1s plus 1 5, so that would be 7. Okay, plus 3 25s, that's 5 squared, 5 times 5. So 75 plus 1 plus 2, okay, I'm sorry, 75 plus 5 plus 2 does give me 82. All right, so let's go back up. Let's do base 2. Okay, base 2 might take us a while. Okay, so in base 2, I'm going to trade 6 small for 3 long. Right here, because 2 small equals 1 long. Why? We're in base 2. Okay? And that gives me, okay, 3 long and 1 small. Because that 1 was left over. I only took 6. Okay? Now, I still can't stop here because this is bigger than 1. Okay? So I'm going to now trade 2 longs for 1 flat. Okay? Because I'm in base 2, so I get 2, I trade up. That leaves me 1 flat, 1 long left over from before. I only took 2 of these, and 1 small. So as a number, we've got as a numeral, 1, 1, 1, and this would be in base 2. Okay, let's move on down here to 82. We are going to be doing quite a bit of trading. Okay, so we would trade 82 small for 41 long. Okay, so I grouped them up into 2 and I traded for longs. Now I don't have any ones left over because they evenly traded. Now I'm going to trade those 40 long for, okay, so I moved up. I have to trade these in groups of 2. Okay, so it's going to take me another group of 2 in order to reach those flats. So I'm going to trade 40 longs for 20 flats. Then trade, at this point, this leaves me 20 flats, 1 long, 0 small. Okay. Then I'm going to trade 20 flats for 10 large, which is going to leave me 10 large, no flat, 1 long, no small. Okay. Now I know that we haven't technically talked about blocks bigger than this, but what's going to happen? Every time we trade up, it's going to take a set of 2 to trade up until we get down to 1. Okay, so we would trade again 10 large for, maybe we can say 5 extra large. Okay, if that helps you to visualize. Okay, so that would give us now 5 extra large, 0 large, 0 flats, 1 long, 0 small. We'd have to trade again. We'd have to trade 4 extra large for 2 XX large. And that's going to give us 2 XX large, 1 extra large left over because we took 4, we had 5. Okay, 0 large, 0 flat, 1 long, and 0 small. Okay. And we know we would even have to trade one more time. We would trade the 2 XX large for 1 XXX large. And that would give us 1 XX large, 0 2X, 1 extra large, 0 large, 0 flats, 1 long, 0 small. So this number in base 2 is equal to 82. And like we said, the smaller the base, the more digits it's going to be required to meet this worth. Okay, so base 16 ought to be pretty quick. Okay, we don't have enough small to make a trade. Okay, we don't have 16 ones. Okay, so all we would have to do is just represent the 7 in base 16. Okay, easy enough to do. Now, with 82, Here we can do a little bit more trading, okay? So let's get started with that. We know we are going to start out by trading groups of 16, right? If we want to sit here and think about how many ways, okay, or how many sets of 16 we can pull out, you would have to think pretty hard about how many sets of 16 exist in 82. And you may have to actually subtract that out every single time. Nothing wrong with that, okay? I know that if I have 2 groups of 16, that's 32. So that means 4 groups of 16 must be 64. 5 groups of 16 then would be 80. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trade 80 small for 5 long. Okay? That's 1 long for every 16 small. And it's okay if you are not comfortable with taking them out like I do. You can pull 16 at a time and see how many run out. Okay? So at this point, we have 5 long and we have 2 small. Okay? I can't do any more trading because I have to get up to 16. I don't have any of those. So the numeral I'm looking for is 5-2 in base 16 here. Okay? So it's a lot of trading. You could actually draw it out or model it if you wanted to. All right, so now we're going to do the reverse. We're going to change the numerals to base 10 by exchanging for smalls. Okay, we're going to take them in other bases, and then put them back into smalls, which again will give us their worth. Okay, so 105, smalls, longs, flats. So I'm going to trade 1 flat for 5 long, because we're in base 5. Then trade the 5 long for, okay, so every time I trade 5 longs, I'm going to get 5 smalls for each one of them, so 25 smalls. How does that work? 1 long gives me 5 smalls. If I do that 5 times, I'll end up with 25. Okay, so that equals 25 smalls from the trade plus the 4 smalls already shown, so a total worth of 29 here. Okay, let's move on. F3, all right, so F, if we start counting with A as 10, B as 11, C as 12, D as 13, okay, E as 14, F as 15. What I know by that F is that I have 15 16s, okay? Because remember, this is counting number of 16s. This is counting 1. Every time I trade one of these, and I've got 15 of them, okay? Each one of the longs will give me 16 smalls, okay? And I have 15 of them. So if I wanted to calculate that, I want 15 16s, I could do the multiplication. That would work, okay? I also could just manipulate that with using, just paper and pencil, or I could draw it out, okay? So what have we said here, okay? We've got 15 longs, and each one will give me 16 smalls. Of course, 6 times 5 is 30. Okay. When I calculate, and 1 times 5 is going to be 5. So it's 1. Okay. So when I combine that, I get a total of 240 smalls from that trade, plus the 3 smalls that are already there. So a total of 243 smalls all together in base 16. Okay. Again, we're thinking about place value and trading as we go. All right, base 2. Smalls, longs, flats, larges. So trade 1 large for 2 flats, right? That now gives me 3 flats total, right? Because I got 2 from here and I already had 1 there. Then trade 3 flats for 6 longs, okay? Plus the 1 long already there, I now have 7. Okay, so I had 3 flats. Every time I exchange 1, I'm going to get 2 for them, so I'm doubling the numbers. So that would have given me 6 plus the 1 that's here, that's 7. Then trade the 7 longs for 14 smalls, okay? 2 for each one of them, okay? So total worth of 14. 0 ones, 1 2, 1 4, okay? 1 8. It's my 2 cubed. So 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 1 2 would be 14 altogether. In a video game called Hexland, if you ask for 13 houses, you actually only get 9. And if you ask for 24 hippopotamuses, hippopotami, however you say it, you only get 16. How do you know that there might be another base that we're working in here? Okay, so first we got to figure out this base, and then we're going to use it for hang gliders. So remember what we talked about in class. We're going to take care of our ones first. So I know, okay, in 13 houses, if I take off the ones, I know that 10 houses that I ask for. So I'm going to assume my ask is in base 10, okay? And in terms of what I get, okay, over here on this side, I might ask for 10. If I take off, okay, 3 out of here, then I'm left with 6 houses. I ask for 10, I get 6. Okay, so let's keep going with this. Hippopotami, I ask for 24, and I get 16. So let's take off the ones. So they've got to be representing 20 hippos, okay, with, if I took out the 4 here, with 12, okay, somehow in 12, 1 part and 2 parts, okay. So how would this work, okay? Let's think about this. 10 houses is somehow represented with 6 ones, okay? Actually, I think there could be a typo in this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to review that, and I'll post this question as a second video in just a moment.